size.
Here we go, the President of the United States.
General Keene, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Here's President Trump. He is deep cleaning from Air Force One. He's at Beale Air Force Base in California. He's there to survey fire damage from the raging wildfires. So far, they've killed 75 people, Leland.
75 deceased.
McCarthy now the incoming House Minority Leader, currently the House Majority Leader there, both the governor of California and the governor-elect of California. Here he's going to be visiting the town of Paradise, California, which in the words of Kevin Corke, our White House correspondent who is there, it is basically a moonscape, in his words, that there is quite simply nothing left. It has been burned fully to the ground. That is what they call the campfire there, which has now been contained by about 50% or so. That is the northern fire just north of Sacramento. We saw on the tarmac there as Air Force One pulled up the helicopters, both the Black Hawk helicopters and the Ospreys that will take the president and the press pool on a tour. So you understand what's happening here is the president has walked off the plane. There is a press pool traveling with him as well, and we're going to wait and see if the president comes over and makes any remarks to the press as this begins. He had talked to them earlier as he departed. It doesn't look like the president's heading over there. So right now he is headed towards the helicopters for his trip to survey the damage. Countless homes destroyed in these fires. And Jillian, as you pointed out, not only more than 70 people killed, but there are still hundreds of people unaccounted for, as now there are teams going house to house to house. And this is one of the things the president is going to see, searching for people who were not able to make it out. In some cases, there was one way in, one way out, and people just couldn't make it.
If you talk, Leland, to the firefighters and first responders on the ground in these types of situations where they face the aftermath of natural disasters, or I don't know if you can actually call this the aftermath, they're still blazing, but this is now part of the hardest task, going and finding people, finding the remains of families and figuring out who is what, figuring out which of those more than 1,000 people missing might eventually enjoy, being reunited with their families and which have passed away. It's a tough, arduous, grueling task ahead of them now. So it's the next 24 hours is going to be painful for folks on every side. Hopefully President Trump being there will give them, a morale boost.
Now, well, we know the president's going to meet with a number of the first responders and thank them for their efforts. This is the helicopter that the president will then get in. He got in there with not only the governor of California, the governor-elect of California as well, and then they will head off for their stops to survey the damage. The other part of this, Jillian, for the first responders who are dealing with this is that fire season continues. We heard from Adam Klotz that the winds are going to pick up through this weekend. Rain is still a few days off. So you have firefighters that are exhausted, that have been working sort of endless shifts in hot, brutal conditions, trying to contain these fires, then with the possibilities of more fires to come, something the president will hear about. And there's a saying that Kevin Corke has, which is that there are times the commander-in-chief becomes the comforter-in-chief, a role that undoubtedly he will play as he meets so many of the people affected here, Jillian.
All right, we're going to stay with the president. We'll check back in once he lands in Paradise on the helicopter there. Meantime, I want to thank my guest, General Keene. Thanks for sticking around with us, sir. We will talk to you soon. Kevin Corke is live with more on the president's trip. He's out of Paradise. Kevin, what can you tell us?
Great job in your coverage, folks. And obviously, as we learn more about the president when he is obviously on the ground, we'll share that with you and all our viewers across the Fox News channel. Let me just say this. Say what you will about the president. He is consistent in his approach to such disasters. That is to say, the full weight of the federal assistance is always at the ready, and in fact, it's distributed as quickly as possible. In fact, as I take you to Twitter, let me just share a bit of what the president had to say before making his way here to the Golden State. He said on Twitter, "Thank you to Governor Jerry Brown. Look forward to joining you and Gavin Newsom in California. We are with you." Obviously speaking on behalf of all of the American people. As you pointed out, the president on the ground here in the Golden State, clearly he gave the reporters there at the White House before deplaning And before making his way up here to California, a bit of a preview, and I want to just share part of what he had to say because I think you'll find it instructive as we look forward to what he hopes to do while he's here on the ground.
So we're going to California. We're making 2 stops. We're going to the 2 areas that you know very well, and it's a shame. It seems that many more people are missing than anyone thought even possible. And I want to be with the firefighters and the FEMA and first responders. We'll be spending a lot of time. We'll be coming back here, probably landing at 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But we want to spend a lot of time.
I want you to hang on to the last thing you heard him say there. We want to spend a lot of time. That's really what's behind this opportunity for the president. You've seen the pictures. They've been devastating. You heard Leland mention dozens dead, hundreds more, if not perhaps even as many as 1,000 at last check, still missing because of the fires here. This is a recurring problem, and I just want to share a little factoid to give the people at home a sense of how often this has been a problem and besetting, quite frankly, not just the Golden State, but the American taxpayer. In fact, since 2005, California has received some $6 billion in FEMA grants to fight and then obviously rebuild from the numerous wildfires. And you may be saying, well, how many, Kevin? Well, since 2000, California's had 198 federal disaster declarations. That's the most of any state in the country. And almost all of them, 177 out of 198 federal disaster declarations, involved fires. Now, one of the main arguments that the Trump administration is trying to make is we collectively, the federal and state governments, can do a better job of mitigating these fires before they happen. And maybe that would not only reduce the number of
I got to stop this for a second and back this up. How many billions of dollars did he say?
Missing than anyone thought even possible. And I want to be with the firefighters and the FEMA and first responders. We'll be spending a lot of time. We'll be coming back here, probably landing at 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But we want to spend a lot of time.
I want you to hang on to the last thing you heard him say there. We want to spend a lot of time. That's really what's behind this opportunity for the president. You've seen the pictures. They've been devastating. You heard Leland mention dozens dead, hundreds more, if not perhaps even as many as 1,000 at last check, still missing because of the fires here. This is a recurring problem, and I just want to share a little factoid to give the people at home a sense of how often this has been a problem and besetting, quite frankly, not just the Golden State, but the American taxpayer. In fact, since 2005, California has received some $6 billion in FEMA grants to fight and then obviously rebuild from the numerous wildfires. And you may be saying, well, how many, Kevin? Well, since 2000, California's had 198 federal disaster declarations. That's the most of any state in the country. And almost all of them, 177 out of 198 federal disaster declarations, involved fires. Now, one of the main arguments that the Trump administration is trying to make is we collectively, the federal and state governments, can do a better job of mitigating these fires before they happen. And maybe that would not only reduce the number of disaster declarations, it would save lives. That's a conversation that the president expects to have both with Gavin Newsom, the incoming governor, Jerry Brown, the outgoing governor, and a number of first responders and those who are here on the ground doing the heavy lifting as this community tries to recover. Jillian, Leland?
Kevin, with all the criticism President Trump is receiving, I think now that we've seen the toll in this fire, 75 dead, over 1,000 missing, it's a conversation well worth having. Thanks, Kevin. Leland?
All right, we keep watching Marine One as it gets ready to take off. From Beale Air Force Base, you can see a number of the other helicopters that travel with the president now taxiing off. Also traveling with the president, a pool in one of the V-22 Ospreys. They're going to be there as the president greets everybody, and that's sort of where we all end up getting the pictures of him talking to not only first responders, but also talking to those who have lost homes, who are still searching for relatives. And as the president pointed out, it's going to be a long day. He's going to spend a lot of time in Northern California there. That's where the campfire is. That's where Paradise, California is, that, as so many have said, has been leveled in a way that there's not much recognizable left. The other place he is going to visit come this afternoon, California time, is down near Los Angeles. The Woolsey fire that destroyed so much of Southern California, Malibu that we all know that is along the Pacific Ocean. And in some cases, the fire went all the way down to the beach. Jonathan Hunt is there as some folks have been allowed to return to their homes, or perhaps what was their homes, Jonathan.
Leland, good afternoon to you. This is a moonscape as well, as Kevin was talking about up in paradise. It is extraordinary when you look around here. And just talking about the politics of a presidential visit, I can tell you that the people who are coming back to find that this is all that's left of their home don't give one whit right now about politics. They don't care whether this was caused by climate change. They don't care whether this was caused by poor land management. All they care about is getting their lives back together. And as you can see quite plainly here, that is going to be a very tough task for hundreds of families here in Malibu and the other areas north and west of LA that got hit by the Woolsey fire. They come back and they find this. Absolutely nothing salvageable whatsoever. And as you look over there to the horizon beyond us, those are the Santa Monica Mountains over there. Those are the mountains over which the flames came, and they rushed down there so quickly, so fast, that very few people here in Malibu had any time to grab anything except the barest of essentials. So they didn't have time to gather photo albums, all those things, all those memories that people like to keep hold of. There just wasn't time. Now, when are they going to be able to get back in here? Well, that's a question I have friends who live here are asking every day, if not several times a day right now. And the answer is not good, Leland. We're being told that it could take some time, days, even weeks, simply because it's so dangerous. And right now, there's no power in any of these areas. Listen here to a spokesman from SoCal Edison.
We have no estimates right now for full restoration, but we're going to stay at this for the days forward and probably well into a few more weeks of actually work.
And these are all people who loved their homes. And I know the people along this street, Leland, because a decade ago, this is the very street that I lived on. These are ordinary, hard-working Americans. These aren't the Malibu millionaires you hear about so often. They're nice homes, but they're homes that people have worked for years and years to build up. You can imagine the family sitting out here, their outdoor grilling area with that view of the Santa Monica Mountains. The reality is they may never be able to do that again, and that is a story that is going to be similar for hundreds of families in this area, Leland. It is devastating what so many people are having to go through right now. Leland?
Now, you make a very good point in terms of what people care about at a time like this. Jonathan Hunt, Malibu, California, with some of the stories undoubtedly the president will hear as he heads to Southern California. Jonathan, thanks so much. We'll keep watching the president for his movements a little bit north again.
Election workers across Florida examining thousands of contested ballots by hand now before tomorrow's deadline. Peter Ducey's live in Broward County, Florida.
I don't want to hear nothing about that. What I do want to talk about real quick is preventions. I spoke in one of my other videos, and I'll go ahead and speak in this one. Since the event happened down in Homestead, Florida, pertaining to Hurricane Andrew, all of the codes have been changed of anybody that is within a certain distance of the ocean of taking on a major hit because of a hurricane. Their building codes now have been changed to the point that they have to build structures to meet certain codes, certain criterias. The environment out in Norman, Oklahoma, which is just outside of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, has been struck in so many times, including downtown Oklahoma, of major catastrophes pertaining to tornadoes, that they changed their code policies too as well, and also mandated it into their code policies. I think since about 2012, I may be wrong about that, 2011, 2012, something like that is whenever they changed their code policies towards any home that gets built. It's mandated now for it to have a storm shelter because of the prone area of where they're at. It just seems common sense that if you're going to live in an area to where for the past 5 years they've had one devastation fire after another since 2005, we have spent tax-paying dollars. This ain't counting this fire, this event, but so far we have spent $6 billion on reimbursing the people out in California because of senseless actions of building home after home after home in an area that is prone of being devastated by a wildfire. I have put the pencil to it pertaining to all this, and I just want to document something to my viewers real quick in regard to what type of engineering structural plan that I personally feel like should be mandated for people out in California that would possibly help to save future wildfire structures. It's no doubt there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres out there that are basically still under the wilderness program. And to think that the forestry department is going to be able to go in there with leaves and rake the ground up is preposterous for our chief and commander to even think of such of a thing, because it would cost hundreds of billions of, not millions, billions of